discussion as we get underway. Thank you.
Great.
Are they on?
Great. Good afternoon. Happy to be here. To my left, we'll start. We have Michael Cornfield, Research Director, the Global Center for Political Engagement, George Washington University. To the left of him, we have Sean Dakin, Principal, Dakin Associates. We have Reed Scott Martin. He's a partner at Social Media Attitudes. Amy Pritchard, Principal at Mission Control. And Eliane Ramos, Principal and CEO of Speak Hispanic. So we'll start with Michael, if you can share 30 seconds max about your background.
Sure. I'm a professor. I teach at a graduate school of political management, which means I train the people who will be your new hires, your new partners, and your new clients in the next couple of cycles. I am also doing research on those of you who buy and sell big data to political clients.
Hi, I'm Sean Dakin. I'm run Dakin Associates, and we do issue campaigns primarily in nonprofit. We're doing a lot of work in climate change and also in the gun violence prevention area. But I probably became most, you may well know me from leading up an anti-political robocall campaign, stoppoliticalcalls.org, or End the Robocalls in 2008, and still in effect right now, to really bring a focus on voter privacy, and particularly around political robocalls. So that's kind of my political background. But I became very good at social media because I had no money, and at the end of the '08 cycle, won the Mashable Open Web Award for the top nonprofit to use social media. And ever since then, I've been talking and consulting on social media and issue campaigns and politics. And I have a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be able to do a selfie up here.
Reed Scott Martin. I have been doing a lot of work at the intersection of grassroots campaigning and technology and GPS-enabled devices. Some of my recent clients have included Grassroots Unwired and run campaigns using NGP vans, minivan. But I got my start in this environment doing ad monitoring and blogging about the 2008 presidential campaign at adoftheday.net, because we were live monitoring launch of display ads, and we're spending a lot of time in my practice at training people in what this new environment is like and allowing them to get a grasp on it, and that's what our company is about.
Is this on? My name is Amy Pritchard. I am a principal with Mission Control, which is actually a more traditionally focused direct mail and print media firm, but I'm also an advisor and consultant with Digital Turf, which is a full-service digital sort of boutique agency. I've been working in democratic and progressive politics for about 25 years now. I'm a former political director of the DNC. I've worked for, candidates and organizations. Actually, I started two other organizations, the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center and Democratic Gain, which I founded and I'm the president of. Gain is an online job bank and networking organization, and BISC, the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center, supports progressive community on working on ballot initiatives. And my, I guess sort of, I don't know if I have a claim to fame per se, and I guess I'm just an early adapter partially, and a big consumer and user of social media. I advise a number of my clients on how to use it, both sort of in the earned sort of traditional grassroots sense, as well as the paid advertising. through digital turf. And I also actually do a lot of international work and managed a campaign. Actually, I was teaching folks in Burma this past year, folks in Libya this past year on using social media, and managed a very large-scale voter education campaign, which I just checked the numbers on yesterday, sort of thinking of it as an example, where we got our Facebook page up to over 300,000, which is pretty big for a single page. So that is working on that as just an example. So internationally and domestically on a variety of campaigns and issues.
Hi, and I'm Elian Ramos, and I'm ER Geek Goddess on Twitter. And what I do is I partner with nonprofits and government agencies to create advocacy campaigns for the Latino community. And I tweet a lot.
Great, thank you. So one of the purposes of this panel, what I would like to do is take the word social media and viral and move away from all the fluffiness of it and try to get very, very granular, very, very specific as it relates to showing a return on investment for all the effort spent on social media and not for the sake of social media. So I'm looking specifically for comments on monitoring tools, tracking tools, so on and so forth. So who would like to take a first crack at it?
I think one of the most obvious monitoring tools that's in almost everybody's pocket here is their cell phone, their GPS-enabled device, and the least arguable, most concise data you can get in a campaign environment right now is a GPS location and a timestamp for when one of your canvassers knocked on the door or when somebody actually, communicated. And I think I think those are that level of granularity when you combine that with 1,000 door knocks or 3,000 door knocks or 10,000 contacts over weeks in different markets and finding out it's possible to learn when people are answering the doors and what neighborhoods when you send them back. And we've really only just begun to touch on that kind of that level of detail in the campaign environment. But the fact that that's right out there, and we just need to have an aim on what butterfly net is going to capture that and how to use it and understand it and get a metric that you can act on, because you can get that information almost instantaneously now if you're doing voter contact.
So on that, let's talk about grassroots and Unwired and Squawker, if you can give a bit of a background on those. I'm
going to let Amy talk about Squawker. Grassroots Unwired, it was a company that was in incubation after almost 2 cycles out. I think they started off during the New Jersey campaign about 4 cycles ago for Senator Corzine, and it was just a special request he wanted to move everything that was happening on a clipboard in the field campaign onto a mobile device. He just knew the data, and he was a data-driven guy. That company was started by a gentleman named Russ Oster, and they went into incubation after about 2 cycles and came out with angel investments to go national and go larger. It's an app that is provided with the phone and the phone service. So if you were to have 10 canvassers going out every day for the price of an 11th going out every day over the next month, you would have everybody on your field campaign have the next day cardboard box arrives with the app loaded in the phone, and the campaign manager can actually watch the canvassers after they've been trained. It's a fairly easy process. Walk around the targeted neighborhood using your targeted list of doors that you want to knock on, and you can see them move around like it's a Clancy movie. And
right.
It's
so what we're talking about is location. We're going to start seeing, I think, a lot of location-based service applications being launched as it relates to polling. So specifically, who owns that data?
It's an interesting question. I mean, the data usually starts off as targeting data that's acquired a traditional way. Somebody I'll ask in direct mail will tell you where you can get that data, and and it's the campaigns to use in real time and gain insight to. And when it's done, it usually has to do with where the original data was acquired. You can return it cleaned up. But what you do have is every day that data is getting better and richer, and you can use it to figure out what neighborhoods to hit next, and you gain insights in 15-minute increments as to where to go and why to go there.
And do you foresee this happening? Do you foresee people being able to, obviously, the collection of data is important, is the first step. Second step is obviously interpreting it, using it, and then turning it around.
Yeah, it's a tool that's widely used right now among the campaigns who know about it, but it's still there's still a lot of upside to it. There are other competitors. You know, NGP Van has the minivan, which is started off as something on an iPod Touch as opposed to a smartphone. I think they've moved on to be platform agnostic. But that's basically that's a good best practice right now in a field campaign. If you have a client and you find out that they're going to be doing everything on the clipboard, the next question is why.
Great. And this is for Professor Cornfield. Talking about big data. What does the rise of data analytics offer to those seeking to maximize influence through social media?
That is a complicated question. I'm tracking at least 5 different types of big data analysis, from reputation monitoring to optimizing field work to predictive modeling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that citizens are as overwhelmed by data as was discussed in the last panel, but I think that all of you and all of us are overwhelmed by all the potential of what can be done in big data analytics. And the best performers, from Obama to McAuliffe last year and to Mitch McConnell this year, are very certain about what they want in terms of strategy, and that helps them cut through all of the metrics to find what it is they're looking for. So there's no one product, as there seems to be on field. It is a rigorous sense of what is my mission right now, what do I want delivered to me, and customizing, as someone said on an early panel, I guess it was the COO of Catalyst, going beyond the drop-down menus to customizing your dashboards so that you're getting what you want and basically only what you want until it isn't working anymore.
Great. Thank you. Sean, hashtag jacking, what is it?
Sure. So, one of the trends that I see and I pay attention to in terms of one of the monitoring things you can use, of course, is search.twitter.com or any of your Twitter search tools. I use Hootsuite. I have that open all the time. But so, for example, on February 18th, the NRA put out a hashtag, and they wanted people to say, I am the NRA. It was hashtag I am the NRA. And a number of people in the gun violence prevention movement saw that and said this is a great opportunity to essentially hijack that hashtag, right? So essentially take over that hashtag for not the intended purpose of the organization that put it out there, in this case the NRA. And so within moments there was coordination amongst the gun violence prevention community, amongst many social media platforms, to say let's go out there and let's push our message out there. And so within moments, really within a very few moments, the gun violence prevention community essentially overwhelmed anybody tweeting anything about guns and the NRA, and it was trending nationally. And we were, the organizations had a lot of fun with that. And essentially, the NRA had nothing that they could do about it. They essentially stopped tweeting. They retweeted stuff over and over again. And so it was a really good example of, my advice to any client is, if you want to have a hashtag campaign, if you want to own a hashtag, you've got to be very, very careful about thinking about, okay, what is the opposition going to do? And do you care about what the opposition is going to do? Maybe you don't. Maybe that's the whole point, is to get it into the conversation and to get people tweeting about it, and that's good for you. But be aware of that and track that and understand what people are using out there and how it can be used against you. And so I see that happening more and more across, all issues.
Michael, you had a comment.
Yeah, I have a question. The question, and this speaks to the raucousness of the raucous diner that we're talking about. My impression has been that fights are good for both sides, that they can be win-win. So when a hashtag is hijacked, if the response from the NRA is proper, then the NRA is also motivating its supporters at the same time that its opponents are motivating its supporters. I think we're seeing this with McConnelling. We saw it way back when Joe Wilson stood up or said in the House of Representatives, "You lie," and he raised $1 million and his opponent raised $1 million. So what I'd like to know from all of you and from you as well is how do these things become win-win instead of win-lose? When everybody can benefit because everyone is talking about it regardless of which side you're on.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't, it really depends on the very specific situation and the organization involved. And I don't have any insight into what the NRA was trying to do, but they stopped tweeting pretty fast. And the evidence that they wanted to move it into their own environment was just last week or this week, I can't keep up. They took the same idea onto Facebook, which is much more a controlled environment, where they can delete people and they can delete comments and they can ban people from that. So that's what they wanted to do.
There are ways of detecting that kind of activity in real time too. The social media tool that Amy and I have both, I just demoed 5 days ago, and Amy knows more about it. Talk about Squawker.
Sure. So, full disclosure, it's a product created by the company I'm affiliated with. So it's a branded product that we are.
It's really impressive. I have no affiliation with it whatsoever.
So it is. It's still, I guess, I would almost call it in beta, right? We're just rolling it out to some of our existing clients. But I'll describe the idea or the sort of the genesis of it and then the actual product. So the genesis of it, this product, is that there's so much happening, right? There's so much noise on Twitter and Facebook, not to mention various blogs and comments on news sites, right? I mean, there's just so much happening. And from a campaign, kind of an opposition research and tracking perspective, it's very, very difficult to monitor all these sites, right? And to decide what do you pay attention to. I mean, when a hashtag is trending, you know something's happening, right? That's sort of easy. But it's kind of the low-grade stuff, right? And when does something happen? I mean, Twitter, if you're not watching at that moment, and if it doesn't have a hashtag, or you don't even know what the hashtag is, you don't know to look for it. And same thing on Facebook, same thing again on all these sites. Again, a lot of noise, a lot of clutter out there. And so, and to your point about the controlled environment on Facebook and other sites, quite frankly, you can take down your own tweets if you make a mistake, if you say something, quite frankly, stupid. And we've seen lots of examples of people just, dumb tweets that get out there. I forget the woman who was traveling to South Africa and made the racist comment. I mean, there's lots of examples. Anyway, so the product that Digital Herf has created, called Squawker, based on squawking on the bird on Twitter, although it's a multi-platform tool, is something that essentially literally live tracks URLs, and it's URL specific. And so it takes essentially live screenshots in you sort of determine what the frequency is. It can be as frequent as every second on a particular site. So for those who take things down, we capture things before they go down, and then at live, it searches the own screenshots. So we can capture that sort of aha moment when someone made the mistake. And again, it essentially creates metrics for the changes. So you get a trigger, so you don't even have to monitor it yourself. It tells you when something's actually changed. And you've got physical examples. So that's sort of the short version.
And Amy, any other products, apps, free or paid, that we should be watching?
I mean, I literally think there's one made every day. I mean, it's crazy how many apps I think are out there. I think the real question is kind of figuring out which ones are useful and which are not, right? There's so many. I mean, I think even Squawker, like I said, I have an affiliation. I have a financial interest in seeing it succeed. I think it has a narrow application, right? A very niche application. It is not for everyone. It's not for every situation. I think really for our clients, and I advise a lot of my clients on a broader set of services, is trying to figure out which ones are worth actually spending your money on, your precious resources, right? They have very limited pots of money, and trying to determine how much money they put in traditional media, how much they put in social media, where they put it on. Do you advertise on, a Hulu or a Pandora? Again, some of these niche sites that you have to go to. Exactly. But there's all sorts of cool tools. I mean, Reed gave an example of there's lots of like voter contact ones and ones that are, for reaching the public, for members, for all different ones. I mean, there's so many. I really, like I said, I have, working on that one, and I don't know if there's others that pop out.
Well, I mean, then another one I would add is on the preventative side, sort of acting ahead and shoring up your own organization so that those mistakes aren't made heedlessly. I'm a big advocate of online training your organization and allowing your individuals who are going to be, empowering them to be on all the channels and not, feel constricted to not communicate as they would, but you train them up so that they really understand all the capabilities of the different social media channels that are available to your campaign. And the price point on that has come way down. You can get seat licenses for a year. People can basically do self-directed learning and 3- and 4-minute video instruction tutorials that are available for an entire year at a very low price.
Sorry to interrupt, but whose responsibility is as it relates to best practices?
Well, I think a campaign management team that knows if they're going to be doing a 3-month or a 6-month effort, could be a ballot initiative that starts early in the petition gathering process, and that you're going to have 8 people on statewide, and like in Florida, who are going to be there in 8 months when it reaches another stage, and you want all of them to be capable, and I think it can fall on the organization to train their own people. There's one that my partner and I sell, but they're competitors. But a lot of the people who are some of the best social media trainers doing conferences are putting all their content into really interactive, accessible video training that people can use without having to get on the plane, go to Key West for PRSA for 3 days, and instead you just go to Comply Socially, and you can even take classes in, with legal compliance and what the requirements are for lawyers who, what social media they're able to use and what the laws are. It gets very, very granular, and that kind of stuff is available. And then there's, if you want to control and have a social media environment for your organization, there are apps that can go right on the website, and you can create a social media environment just for your organization. There's something that I'm familiar with, and came out of a St. Louis startup. It's called Push Up Social, and it's a button at the bottom of your web page, and all of your employees or your team members' social media about your enterprise is going to take place linked with your homepage, and so it's just you're not just out in the Twitterverse and then in Facebook and in Google Plus. Who uses Google Plus? But so there are a lot of different ones out there.
Right, I'm gonna go, Sean. We're gonna right come back. But I want to spend some time with you, Elian Ramos. So you have a good handle on the Latino community. Give us some of the important elements that the community is looking to hear as it relates to social media from some of the candidates. And is Latino community on the radar socially and focusing on the community?
Well, what I think is that it's very hard to determine what the candidates are doing. The community is online. It's actually the Latino community has the highest penetration in social media of all the different ethnicities. And so what the candidates are doing online, what the political parties are doing online is not necessarily very pointed to the community. But what we're seeing is a lot of the efforts that are made are pretty much talking down to the community. There needs to be some kind of respect that needs to happen, and it's not necessarily happening. And there's the sense that the Democratic Party tends to do a little better in the community, but right now we're seeing that the Republicans are starting to make efforts, in hiring people to talk to the community, in getting some outreach campaigns, but they're not. What's happening is that they're not necessarily talking to the community; they're talking at the community, and so that's something that both parties need to work on. I don't think.
So when you talk about talking down, is it a language barrier? Is it something that's more specific as it relates to demographic? If you can just explain that to us.
Yeah, I don't think it's a language barrier. The Latinos who are online tend to be bilingual, and so the barrier is more in terms of listening. Online gives you an opportunity to listen to what people have to say and to respond in kind. So what is happening is a lot of messaging that is more in the line of traditional marketing, traditional communications, which is like one-sided, but it's not necessarily a listening or an interactive conversation where they're paying attention to what the community wants and responding to it, not just in communications, but in policy. And I think what needs to happen is that they pay attention to what it is the community is asking for and create not just communications, but also policies that attend to those needs.
So are the campaign managers or the people on the Hill, are they or should they be focusing on a specific Spanish social media target?
No, actually, depending on, this is a common misconception about the Latino market. It's not a monolithic audience. You have the Latinos who are online who tend to be bilingual, like I mentioned before, but you also have a very palpable digital divide in the Latino community, which, is starting to close a little bit, but you have people who may not even have a computer. And so for those people, the communications have to come in a different form. So in many cases, that communication has to be in mobile form, because the mobile technology in many cases replaces an actual computer in many households. And so there's the language element that needs to happen. There's the medium that you need to be aware of, which one works for which, but also there needs to be the cultural component, and I think that's the one that's missing the most. Is getting messages that that understand the community and that understand what the community wants and needs.
I think the international aspects are fascinating too, just because they're in the news. Not just some of them are overseas elections, to our south, and some of them are 8 time zones away in Ukraine or Crimea, and we're seeing that. Amy, you've done a lot of international work. I mean, what is the picture different?
I mean, just an interesting pivot, but I think generally speaking, to your point, actually, more about Latino community here. Internationally, it's so much more about mobile, right? I mean, I think that's getting more true here, actually, across all races and sectors and every which way, ages, et cetera. But Africa, I mean, most of Europe, they're so more advanced. I mean, their whole cellular systems are so different. The telecoms are very different there and how they operate. To your point, yeah, they don't have computers, but everybody has a cell phone, and they may or may not be a smartphone, but they're getting them if they aren't. So
and just to your point, Amy, what's fascinating, I spent a great deal of time in Africa and Asia, in South America, the campaigns there are, their digital campaign is really, it's not so much about social media, like what you said, as it is about the mobile phone and SMS
big time.
SMS
Yeah.
bulk text is
Yeah.
massive, and working
Yeah.
in conjunction, differently here, working in conjunction with the telcos. So assuming that the politicians can grab the data from the telcos, they win, so
Yeah,
to speak.
yeah.
So-
No, I mean, we're limited, I think, here because of the telco, clearly, right? Although it's still amazing to me how few campaigns are using mobile in the ways that are within the means and within the reach. I mean, if you think about it, how many of you open or phrase it slightly differently, how many people ignore text messages, right? Virtually nobody. You read every text message you get. You may not, we're used to it, and yet most of us delete the volume of emails that come in, right? We're not looking at it. And God knows we can't possibly see everything that's in our Facebook feeds or in our Twitter feeds, or let alone Instagram and Pinterest and every other, right? So we are just so diffused. But mobile, I mean, we're all literally tied to it, right? How many are checking it even as we speak, right? And anything that comes in, you're seeing it, So I think campaigns, U.S. campaigns, both Democrats and Republicans, are, a little bit behind the curve here, and have some catching up to do.
What kind of content do you want to put into those text messages, given the strict limits on what you can
I
say?
mean, it really depends who it's coming from and what the purpose is, right? I mean, I don't think there's a simple answer to that, but I do think there are creative ways to use mobile, and you can contact people in a way that, it used to be because of text message feed. I mean, you do have to be careful, and there are clear limitations, but I still think that we can be using it better. We should, the royal we.
What I would to comment on Michael's question, if I were a politician running somewhere in East Africa and I had to deliver a message via text, it probably would just be a photograph. It would be something very, very visual. So that would be my opinion. But Sean, wanted to spend a little bit more time with you. Let's specifically talk about social media trends right now and how the landscape is going to be different outside of understanding data collection. How is it different from 4 years ago, 8 years ago, and what are we going to be seeing over the next 2 years?
Sure. Well, if I was able to tell you that, then I would be, a billionaire. So, the only
As long as you share,
the only truth in social media from a trends perspective is it's changing so fast. But the one stable thing that I've seen, obviously, is the stability and the continual dominance of Facebook, right? And so, Facebook is definitely huge. I just went to a conference last week on all these new networks, Whisper and Feed, and of course Snapchat and everything else. But I don't see a lot of utility there for political campaigns necessarily. But keeping on track of Facebook, but really keeping on track of what I call there's the hashtag jacking, but then on Facebook there's meme jacking, right? So we could see in the 2012 cycle, you're watching the debates, and within moments of a utterance of a candidate, there were memes, mostly on Facebook, because people were watching on double screens, triple screens. And so the ability, particularly in the campaign world, to have that social media war room, to have people who are literally watching and listening to every tweet and every utterance and creating those memes really quickly. And so in terms of tools, I was going to get to, there is a tool that I can't live without called CrowdTangle. CrowdTangle is a Facebook monitoring tool that allows you to see what all the other pages on Facebook are doing within your existing category and see what's going viral right now. And so you can monitor what's going viral right now, and you can hijack that if you want, and you can make it your own meme. But using something like CrowdTangle, which, oh, by the way, is now being used by like every advertising and digital agency in the country, including YouTube itself. And I know the CEO is meeting with Facebook in the last couple of weeks. So it's really amazing to kind of see what's going on there.
Yeah, I think the trend is going to be more education faster. And I call it every campaign its own NSA. I think that we have the tools available if we manage ourselves at the beginning of a campaign to set up, basically an information collection system, for each, no matter how small or how large. And we have to have sort of an analytical approach based on what we think we want to find out, but it also allows us to find surprising insights that we didn't even expect to pop up and find them faster. And it's a squawker, or it could be, there's a company called DigiJax. Alan Silberberg was going to be here. I took his place, but he's been he started off with a tool that was basically making sense of boiling the ocean and coming up with insights, and he's turned it into we see a lot of these that start off as monitoring become a cybersecurity play. The Media Trust, which was a company, it is a company that's been growing like Topsy, privately held in McLean, and they started off just proving that online ads were launched when and where they were supposed to. And they found out that they were also finding out when malware was getting embedded, and they've turned into I think they're much more successful now and have most of their clients in online security.
That's a sensitive topic. I'd like to actually just go around very quickly. We'll start with Professor Cornfield. Two pieces of advice you'd leave with, or you'd focus on as it relates to a specific campaign if you're speaking to a campaign manager.
Well, advice number one is find ways to create and repurpose fights that people want to talk about. Fights are the most compelling content there are. From Richard Sherman after the Super Bowl to what I mentioned before, Joe Wilson. Fights have to be within boundaries, because otherwise people won't want to talk about them. But that's what I think is a universal in political communication. For number two, I would go back to what I said earlier about the possibility of win-win, which is also why you need to have your own metrics, and you need to have, I don't know, it kind of creeps me out to hear your own NSA. But you do have to have your own metrics, and let me just toss that to you by saying, now that the NSA is no longer the NSA post Snowden, what sort of implicit and explicit contracts do you need to have with your campaigners, both the ones you train and the voters and donors you're reaching out there? How transparent do you have to be about what you're collecting and what you're doing with it?
Very, utterly.
And who's the model for that?
I think
who's done a good job of that?
I think there are more bad examples than good ones. I think you've done a good job if you haven't ended up with a bruise on your forehead in the public square. You don't usually get a pat on the back for not making a mistake. You just get brickbats for when you stumble and fall. And those are I can think of all the bad things that have happened.
So I would give two different pieces of advice, and do give on a regular basis two different types of advice. One is just on the data side, and it's a little bit about data. It's a little bit owned, but I generally operate in the do what is legal, do what is transparent, do what is okay. So I'm fine with cookies, for example, or some of my colleagues are not fine with cooking people who come to your site, for example, right? But my general attitude is own data. I mean, especially if you're a candidate or someone running for office and you expect to be sort of in the public space for years to come, no better way to kind of build a following than to track the people who actually come. But again, be transparent and be open about this. Have very clear policies and try to do it universally. I think campaigns right now, particularly candidate campaigns, but I think this is true for issue campaigns and some small nonprofit organizations, et cetera, have data all over the place, right? They have data, an email inbound list that they have like sign-ups on their site. They have their Facebook pages. They have donor lists that are direct mail. They have voter contact lists. I mean, so data is just all over the place, and it's really messy, let alone big. So one is sort of have a data policy and a data strategy, and try to plan it. I mean, you can fix as you go. It's not, everybody doesn't start from ground zero, so to speak, but, I think that thinking about data holistically is really important. And again, being transparent about what you're doing and how you're going to use it, but use it. Be aggressive about using it. The number of campaigns, I mean, I look at people coming to yourself like a voter contact, right? It's not the same thing. I don't know, for example, someone comes to could be the opposition, could be a Republicans. I'm not saying that, but we have the most sophisticated tools now where we can do a voter file match, we can cookie match these people, and we can see who they are. Right? And now you want to talk about it sounding creepy, but Amazon's doing it every day. And so, right? And so I have no problem with that. I have no problem. Frankly, I want to win, and I want the biggest, bestest, baddest list that I can have. And so it's amazing to me how many things are not being used. So that's sort of the data technical advice. And then the second piece of advice is just on pure messaging, which is don't try to comment on everything and be everything all the time. It's very easy to want to jump into every conversation. But if you're running, it's sort of simple message advice. It's like have a message and stick to it and become a, expert on something. I'm guilty of this, but that's because I advise so many different people. I'm sort of the jack of all trades, master of none, right? But if you're an organization, if you're a candidate, you want to try to focus because it's very easy. I mean, you talk about ADD. I mean, social media is like for all of us, right? You could just be all over the place. So try to focus on a message and content and have a data strategy.
And quickly, two pieces of advice.
Well, the first one would be stop the trolling. I think we were talking about hashtag hijacking before. The social media is not meant to be just about listening to your side of the story. That creates a vacuum. And what you want is really to listen to what the other people have to say and respond transparently and respond with your points. I think it's the whole political conversation online has become this, name calling and this hair pulling kind of thing instead of just listening to people. And in terms of reaching audiences, communities of color, I think a lot of the times people try to blanket everyone into a group. But for example, if you're going to target the Latinos, one of the biggest groups is the Latina women. And they're leading in every social media platform, and they're leading in business, and they're leading in getting college degrees. They're very well educated, but they're ignored by every politician out there. Like their issues don't exist. So pay attention to the different pieces of the audience. And make sure that you're talking to all of these different constituencies. It's not just about, we're not Mexican, you know what I mean?
Actually, just one other point on that. It's not just Latina women, it's women generally. I read some statistics. I meant to actually print it out today. Another plug for company I'm not affiliated with, Trendpo, which does a great job. I don't know if there were anyone here from them, but they do a great job analyzing and synthesizing who's online. And they just happened to put something out this morning. It's women on every single site. Women are the ones who are online. Women are the ones, by significant, percentages more than men. Across the board, at every age, at every race, universally, more and more women.
Ari and panel, unfortunately, those are great questions and great responses, but we're out of time, and we're not going to do questions. We need to break for lunch, but I'm sure you can hit all of them during the lunch break. So thank you for a lively discussion, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock.